Well, it's that time again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the interview with Craig Veltri.
Thank you, Megan Pennington, and welcome to the interview. She was born in Hokkaido, Japan, to an Army intelligence officer. Her birth name is Amy, and she was affectionately called Amiko by a Japanese caregiver. Amiko, according to some translations, means friend to many. Others state the word is synonymous with beauty. These are fitting descriptions for this artist, as well as stylistically ambitious and adventurous. Her latest single, Reckless, a club banger with multiple remixes, already is on streaming, and it's a departure from her previous single, Hat Trick, a country song that is club friendly but almost all banjo. Calling in from Dallas, Texas, here she is, Amiko. Amiko, welcome to the interview.
Thank you, Craig. It's great to be here today.
Thank you for being here. So, already a world traveler by the before the age of 10, and you obviously carry that name with you, being born in Japan, to an army officer, and thank him for his service.
Thank
And so my first question is, and we talked about this before we got on air a little bit. I think I gave a pretty decent explanation of where the name came from, but what does the name mean to you, and why do you carry that onto stage and onto platforms like so?
Well, I was a very advanced developer, getting a lot of attention from a lot of adults on the base that my parents lived on, and the Japanese caregiver that I had, she would walk me around town. And it basically, my understanding is that it means precious little girl in Japanese. So it's a name given to little girls, very commonly, and very endearing and loving. And so according to my parents, I sang my first full song, Yankee Doodle Dandy, when I was 9 months old. I have no idea if that's true. Uh, it's not really verifiable. My dad is no longer here with us, but he is walking with me every step of the way for sure.
Mm.
And, my parents had phenomenal stories about Japan. So I grew up really knowing the stories about it.
Because
And
you moved
wait
back
to go
to
back.
Minnesota around the age of 2, so you kind of came of age and came of consciousness in America. So you had the God-given or instinct rather to perform. What was music like in your household in Minnesota and going forward?
Right. Well, that's a phenomenal question because it was extremely influenced by Japan. And I'll just say real quickly that my dad was sent to the Pentagon after his mission in Japan, and we lived in Washington, D.C. for 2 years.
My uncle Tom
Yes.
actually is a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. I've been in the Pentagon many times, and a couple of rooms
Oh,
that only
cool.
he had access to. So he was that a really cool. So DC is really where it started. Is that where the memory turned on, at least?
Yes, the memory, I have two or three snapshot memories, I say, about my time in DC. And I remember, wiggling to music, and I remember being in swimsuits and swimming in a pool somewhere, and that's about it.
Okay.
Because it was before I was 4. But no question, my parents didn't have a lot of money in Japan, and they were able to acquire some really cool things, Yamaha music components
Mm.
that were so high
From the
quality,
source.
not even available in the United States at the time. And the money that they had available to them when they were moving back to the States was to get their music, their speakers, their amplifier, their tuner, all these things, the record player with the needle, all that kind of thing, all went onto a cargo ship and came back to the United States and then was shipped to Minnesota and waiting for them when my dad was done after 2 years at the Pentagon.
Now, why Minnesota? Is that where your mom and
That's
dad were from?
yes. Yes, my mother was born in Minnesota. My dad was born in Minnesota. My dad has Texas roots, which is great. I live in Dallas, and I always feel very connected to my Texas roots here. His mother was from Odessa, Texas, and her dad was a wildcatter. And then my dad and my grandmother and grandfather moved, and he met my grandmother as a military officer at a dance. So she was one of the girls that could dance, and that's how they met. So I think my heritage, they moved back to Minnesota because that's where my grandfather was from. And so my dad was also kind of put back and forth between Texas and Minnesota because Minnesota's cold, Texas, and on the area that my grandmother was in Texas is a very kind of a dust bowl at times and was very
Hmm.
hard for asthma. So they moved back and forth quite a bit actually. And my dad lived in Texas. My dad was largely raised in Texas, and then his early teen years moved back to Minnesota. And so, but all my roots are in Minnesota that are really profound and things that I remember.
Now, when I think Minnesota music, there are three things that come to mind, and forgive me if this comes off as somewhat disingenuous because I really didn't think much through on this one. But when you think of Minnesota mainstays, you think, I think, anyways, of course, Prince,
Of course,
Husker and there's a great punk scene around Minneapolis in the '80s,
fantastic. Yes.
and the Prairie Home Companion.
Okay.
I can definitely hear the pop stuff on Reckless for sure. I definitely heard some folksy music in uh with with your song Hat Trick, and we'll get to why I think that might be a significant thing in your life as well in a minute. But was that the music that you were hearing in the house and around you, or were there further influences that were getting into your household?
Well, I can say that I heard everything in my household. My parents were very diverse in their listening guidance to us as kids. And I listened to Steppenwolf, I listened to Elvis, I listened to, oh my gosh, I mean, everybody, Wynton Marsalis,
I've seen
Charlie
him live actually.
incredible,
He's
incredible.
way
Yeah, Charlie Bird, Joni Mitchell. Boy, I can tell you, I heard everything pretty much when I was growing up. But my parents did introduce me to Prince. My parents did. And so they didn't really have, the limitations on everything having to be perfect. I was a huge Queen fan growing up. That's no surprise. Rock and roll was a big part of our lives. I would say rock and roll is probably the most influential style of music that I listened to. And then as I got to be an older teen, I grew into the alternative rock movement with punk, with new wave, with different sounds there. Big influence for me is Duran Duran.
Hmm.
Um, and that sort of era with oh, I'm trying to think of her name. This is terrible. House of Glass. Help me out here. Help me out.
Oh, you
Yeah.
well, I know Heart of Glass from Blondie, but
Heart of Glass. Blondie was a huge influence for me, big time. Major.
so a lot of new wave and
Yeah.
a lot of what we would now know as classic rock. And Duran Duran you mentioned as an influence, and that definitely checks because the song Reckless, they were known for making club hits that somehow could fill arenas, and it
Yes.
definitely has a big sound. We'll talk about the remixes that have been produced in the interim, but you reached out to a well-known songwriter and producer who goes under the name of Jackie's Boy to write this song. How did that relationship come about, and how did the idea of the song come about?
Well, it's an interesting thing. I spent quite a bit of time going back into my poetic talents. And I started to develop and scale this idea of how to turn my poetry into music. I had been told my whole life, you're an incredible poet, you've got talent, college professors loved my work, and I just never saw a path forward. And for the first time, I really thought, I'm going to just go for it because I've been told many times that I should turn my poetry into song lyrics. And so I went through a very productive period of creating song and developing song ideas. I do have a musical background. I played the flute. I understand music theory. But I think way more profound than that in my ability to put the pieces together and create these song ideas is my love of listening to music.
Hmm.
So I developed my own protocol. Check, 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 check. And I developed my own process of how to write song ideas without being able to compose. I
Can
have
you
not
color?
grown the
Can
art
you
of
color?
arrangement, but at the time that I was writing these song ideas, I was really developing them around concepts and things that I was inspired by as a young person. So I listened to Blondie, I listened to Queen, I listened to AC/DC, and I would develop these song ideas. From there, I was introduced to a promoter named Jason Dowman, Dowman Music in Los Angeles. And he saw my songbook, all these things that I had been creating for months and months and months. I had over 300 developed ideas of how I wanted to craft a song from the lyric perspective
Now, how
and
did
the
that
sound
look on a
perspective with
page?
the
Was
influences of.
that we're here with Amiko here on the Craig Veltri interview on Scarfire Radio. How did that look on a page? Because did you have tapes that were kind of like humming, and you say like this is where the bass goes, this is what a bass line would
Yeah.
sound like. What did that look or sound like as far as an outline for, let's
Right.
say, a song like Reckless?
Right. So I was on Apple Music because I could tamp down the lyrics and I didn't have to listen to the um the actual singer. So I would take songs and I would tamp down the sound, and because it's designed for using in karaoke or singing along and things like that.
I
And
see.
so I would tamp down the sound and I would use what I already knew of the lyrics as an influence. And then I'd come up with a song idea. So I started with the title, and then I would turn on the music and I would listen to it without words for quite a long time, maybe 30 minutes or something, maybe 10 times. And then I would go to write with just the music, and I would find some sort of way to frame it all in lyrics by simply listening to the BPM and the pentameter of the song without hearing the words. I already knew in my head. So I would write to the speed of the song, generally speaking, and craft things that rhymed with each other.
Right.
And too much, because I've actually been, trained in how to write poetry. So my crafting was careful and intentional in that sense.
Hmm.
And sometimes it looked very fast and it went through very fast. And sometimes it didn't. And I would leave it and come back to it later. But by the end of it, I had, like I said, about 305 fully developed song concepts. And so when I showed that to my promoter at Downman Music, he thought I should meet somebody that he was connected to, Jackie's Boy. And Jackie's Boy is a Grammy-winning, very successful co-writer producer,
Yeah,
and
got hits with Bieber. He's got
yes.
hits with Johnny. I've heard of the one he did with Johnny Gill, and he's being in that. What was the one thing that you learned working with a guy who is that established, and you just starting out at this point? What's the biggest thing you
Well,
learned working with him?
the biggest thing I learned working from with him is that I was good enough to do this,
Hmm.
because it's an incredible thing to walk into that process and have somebody say, I think you can see and meet with Carlos. He loved Hat Trick and he wants to work with you. And I was just like, are you kidding me? So really the process was completely empowering. Carlos is a developing artist, producer, co-writer, producer himself. So he really understood how to coach me through the process and forced me at many junctures to say, you can do this. You've got the next two lines. And he wouldn't say another word. And then he'd just wait for me to come up with things, because I had this whole song idea called Be Reckless. And it was inspired by some of my private life and some other things that I've seen happen to lots of my women friends, about how over the years you're in a relationship and you need to push it sometimes and just go have crazy fun and do things that you never thought you should do. You have to be childlike at times to keep a connection in a relationship. At least for me, that was very important and an insightful thing. And I processed that as a song idea, and he really loved it. I came in and Jason told me, you have to be really organized when you go see him. I want you to have all your song ideas, all organized. And so I just had them, 3M'd, in my notebook, and, the titles at the top with the little Post-it notes. And, he went through it and he's like, ooh, I like this. I like this. So the composer was in the room with us, and at the time we started crafting it, and it took us 4 hours from start to finish.
My.
Four
Well,
hours. I was absolutely shocked, but I mean, it's really because I was working with him. He knew how to, steer the ship.
Hmm. Coaching, you use the word, and we'll get
Yes.
to why that is significant in your life in just a couple of minutes. We're here with Amiko here on the Craig Veltri interview on Scarfire Radio. This is a song that is very poppy, and it's not uncommon for songs to get remixes that will sometimes improve. Sometimes it's meant for the clubs, talking about what Duran Duran used to do. So how did the remixing come into thing? Because honestly, as much as I like the original one that came out, I do have a preference for the Sean Finn remix. How did that come about?
Yes, I'm just in honor. I'm just in awe. Another connection that Jason had is with Sean Finn, who, of course, he did a collaboration with Rhythm of the Night with Corona, which was a massive, massive global hit, and it still gets played all the time, every day on Spotify and everywhere else all over the world. And it's
Mhm.
one of those things where, everybody that goes into the music business would love to have a song like that. Um, it's incredibly impactful, totally positive, just really inspiring. And again, it was like, I'm good enough, it was just really, really, it was so warming and so inspiring to keep this idea that I can do this going. And now I have a totally different level of confidence, but you have to understand that my scaffolding was being built at that point.
Uh-huh.
Not even, I was really still not standing on the scaffolding in any sense of the word at that point. So for me, being able to have Sean Finn do my first DJ remix of an electronic dance music single was incredibly, it was just an honor, a
So
hundred percent.
I've never really done remixes myself, and I do see it all over the musical landscapes. You were actually it directly involved. You were in the studio. He didn't just cut paste your voice and give you a brand new and just taped over the masters. Basically, you were actually in there with him doing this.
No, Sean Finn he's based in Germany.
Okay.
So he's in Stuttgart, I believe, and I actually speak a little German, so it was quite a nice synchronicity for me to have my first remix done. No, it is done remotely. We do have a system. Electronic dance music is really interesting in the sense that, often uses real instrumentation, things like that, to weave into an electronic dance composition. However, it can be taken apart. So it's taken apart in many, many different pieces, and you send a remixer the vocal stem. So basically, they can listen to the recording and they want to, for influence and for inspiration for them. But generally speaking, unless you're a major recording artist, which it does happen, there are famous DJ remixers that do work in the room during the process, but that doesn't happen at my level. And probably in most circumstances, it is something that is sent to them electronically, and then they work with it from there and decide. And you don't necessarily have to give them, someone like Sean Finn, you don't really have to give them a whole lot of information. They're going to know more about what to do than you are. So, so they're just going to think, okay, all right, this girl can speak a little German like that. I love the techno German music movement. I learned it in German class. My German class instructor had a music lab, and we used to listen to, um, you know, 99 Luftballons and Der Kommissar and all those songs, very, very famous stuff from
Yeah.
that era,
Rock
which
Me
was
Amadeus, stuff like
Rock
that.
Me Amadeus, everything like that. So yeah, so that's how it works. And then basically, I was walking into a soccer game, a soccer match at AT&T Stadium here in Dallas, and I got a call from my promoter, and I thought, well, gosh, it was still relatively early in our relationship, and I thought, well, he's calling me now. I better answer it as I'm walking through security. And he just was screaming at me, and I was like, he's the nicest man in the world. And I was like, it must be good. It must be really good, because he was just like, he's never ever been that exuberant around me. And I immediately knew, and I just kind of went like, clutched my fist and put my elbow down like, a good athlete does, and just, yes, like, whoa. And then I was able to listen to it before I got into the stadium, and I started to cry. I was like, are you kidding me?
My.
Wow.
Congratulations on that one for
Thank
sure.
you.
Miko
Yeah.
here on the Craig Veltri interview. You bring up soccer, and we talked around and hinted that you've not only have you played 4 years in at the University of Minnesota
Played
as a
two.
soccer.
Yeah,
You say it again, please.
I played two. Sorry.
You played two. Okay, my
Yeah.
apologies on that. You lettered, it counts. So, but you played 2 years. Played 2 years of Division I women's soccer and a Big Ten school, and you went and you parlayed that in eventually into coaching. Was there ever you've gone more into music now? It seems, or are you still involved in the sport in some way, rec leagues or whatever?
Yeah, yeah. So I still am a coach. I'm an active coach. I actually have a program that we run here in Dallas with a partner. It's an all-female owned program, and we are using music during our training, and it's working great. These kids are having a blast.
Using
So
music, how so?
yes, yes. So basically, there's good evidence-based backing on this idea that there's a couple different ways that music works well for athletic performance, but in particularly in soccer, the BPM can help with skill development. In other words, it can keep them, moving at the correct pace that they would have to move under defensive pressure in an actual game. So that's a very important thing to replicate in a training environment, right? And so that's one really cool thing. And then we can use songs like the Cupid Shuffle to help them, do direction on how they should move the ball right to the right, to the right, to the left, to the left, to the left. And they're doing it with smiles on their faces, and the time warp is incredible.
As a former karaoke DJ, forgive me, I just had a couple of bad flashbacks as it was around the time that song came out. But I will, but I can definitely see the
Forgive
point. In
me.
fact, what people don't give a lot of credit to soccer. I'm not a fan myself, but I do see how fluid the movement is and how plays can be called, and it is it does involve dance maneuvers almost sometimes, including flop.
100%.
But but as some, I will ask this because I do like to ask this question as far as how it seems that at least in this country, women's soccer tends to take preference over men's soccer, at least from outside looking in. Is it just because the team's better in America, or is it, or is it, or does there seem to be more of a rise coming out of that sport as a whole, worldwide for sure?
Yeah, yeah, there's a huge projected growth market in youth soccer for about 10 years globally, and the United States has the most room to grow. So I very much am well versed in all this information. And I would like to add too that I was a Division I development player. So at the time that I played at the University of Minnesota, it was not quite a fully funded D1 program, but we won two Big Ten championships and were undefeated the entire time for 2 years. But it was early days, just before Title IX was required. So Title IX
Mm.
was being grandfathered in, but essentially we beat everybody like by a lot. And I was invited on the team. I did not have to try out. I played Olympic development soccer a few years before I went to college. So I did have an incredible experience, but it was a little bit earlier than when the University of Minnesota accredited their full program in 1992, I believe. So, and Brandy Chastain's sister is now the women's coach at the University of Minnesota, which is a super cool thing as well. But I would say the sport for women largely has to do with the fact that the women did very well and dominated very early on in their process of developing as a brand. And I will say that for a specific reason, because, when you get to that level, you are a brand. There is a brand, and there is a lot of social media movements and marketing behind soccer, and women's soccer, of course, wants to be elevated. But I would say that that's probably the most likely reason that the women's side has done better, is because it's more aspirational. The being able to obtain, World Cup status dominance in the Olympics and the World Cup and global matches is something the men have not yet acquired. And so
As
I
some
would say that there are probably better athletes that feel like they can get there than on the men's side, because, there is obviously competition for many, many sports for both men and women. And so it would be hard to say that, men don't get there because there's so many sports. I think it's more that
Mm.
in the earlier days of their development, they dominated the sport. And so that more girls feel like they can get there for sure.
So it, that's
Not that
I think
they
that's a
do,
really
but they
great.
feel like they can. Yeah.
That feels like some really great perspective on the sport. As somebody who's been so close to the game, is it all frustrating that soccer isn't more popular, especially for someone who's also been around the world from another country?
Well, I would say that I love the sport so much that it doesn't feel like frustration to me. It just feels like, okay, we're dealing with this now, right? So how do you solve these problems? And so I'm part of that. And I think music can be a part of that as well.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I plan on doing is combining some of my skills. I have written some songs that have soccer titles and soccer ideas that have been woven into EDM and pop sounds. And so I think there's a way to connect both sides of me in the sport and make it more innovative and more fun and
Well,
inspire
you,
a lot of
what?
stories. There's a lot of stories out there about professional soccer players. Even there's one in Vancouver, British Columbia, who recorded in the same studio that I do or I have in Miami, who he's a Vancouver, British Columbia Whitecap. And he, I guess, comes there on his off time during the off season and goes and records. And the sound engineer that I worked with in Miami said he's incredibly talented. So I think there's a lot more stories out there of athletes who are also creatives
Hmm.
in many, many different ways.
I mean, you can think of I mean, the one probably not a more dubious entry is into music, but Deion Sanders had a hit back in the early '90s, and and so many of these people that we see have athletic backgrounds. I mean, Toby Keith used to talk about how he played semi-pro football, but semi-pro always means semi-pay. So there certainly is that history, and you definitely have used the ideas of sport with your single hat trick, which was more of a country song that you went full Texas on that
We
last
did, and
one.
it's gonna stay. It could be, one of those things where it stays Texas, but it's gonna have a twist,
Oh,
a
for
big
sure.
pop twist to it. I mean, right now the trend, like Shabuzi, I mean, I mean, the big remix really
Beyonce.
working with these country songs, and basically the whole interesting thing, like Teddy Swims is a great example of someone who's very, very classically an R&B a blues singer, blues rock. He's in a few different genres,
Yeah,
but
I love him.
he has a mix out there that's doing incredibly well on TikTok
Yeah.
from a remix
And
in Brazil. And it's just crushing it. It's like they can make all these country songs into phenomenal things. And that is actually inside the industry is a first move for many country artists now is to get a remix done by a big DJ remixer.
And not to mention, last year, I think the Billboard Top 100 had, I think it was nine country songs in the top 20, which I think is
Yes,
unprecedented in the history
incredible.
of that chart. So that's talking about the year-end list for 2024. So I think it's a great idea, and it is a good song. Hat Trick in particular, because that is in soccer and hockey too. That's when somebody
Uh-huh.
scores three goals in a game. How many times has that happened for you in your career?
Me, oh, many, many, many times. But
Many.
I played where, defensive theories weren't as robust as they are today, so I don't want to oversell. But I was a scoring machine. I was basically like a pinball machine. Boom, 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 boom. I scored all the time. And I was also very, very, I was very good. So but I loved it so much and I still do. So just to add to the EDM and the country sound, I have to tell you, my whole journey and process of becoming a songwriter, not just a lead vocalist and arranger, came from Chris Stapleton.
Mm.
Um, he, I mean, I sang Chris Stapleton songs 3 or 4 times a day, practiced them, dissected them with my vocal instructor. And I can crush it. I can sing White Horse. I mean, I'm ready. I love the fact that Chris Stapleton is so huge and he is incredibly talented. I think the unique thing about Chris is to me, he's very rock and roll too.
Oh
Uh,
God, listen to
Country music has embraced so many genres that were more distinctive in and of themselves, and they're embodied by someone like Chris Stapleton, who just had Dua Lipa on stage with him.
mm. I will say this
So
about
there's
country
really
music.
interesting, relationships developing there. Yeah.
I absolutely agree about Chris Stapleton. I mean, if you ever listen to his stuff with the Johnson brothers, that sounds like Zeppelin. Somebody said this about country music: it's a traditional form of music, and there's nothing more traditional than complaining about the new stuff. So I appreciate that you have a much more um, proactive look about your music and about the music as a whole, and I think that's a very healthy thing to bring to your work. And speaking of going forward, what are we going to see more remixes off of Reckless? I've already seen a teaser for a music video. Are we more music down the road? What's that looking like?
Right. So I am sitting on 5 unreleased singles right now. Um, 4 of them are part of Carlos and I are doing a project together called the Amiko Project, and it's a story about how soccer and um, music have gotten me through very, very difficult things in my life, big challenges.
Hmm.
And I have been very, very fortunate to meet some very talented soccer girls and a few soccer guys that we are going to include in this story about how soccer has allowed us to be very tough and very good decision makers through the process of life. And life is a challenge. It's beautiful. It's a spiritual experience for me.
Hmm.
It's everything, you know. And so I use so many of the tools that not only that I learned as a player, but the tools that I've been given by US Soccer as a coach have been invaluable in this process. I have been able to navigate things in the music business. Without my soccer education, I don't think I would have had all the school skills and tools that I have.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure, sure, sure. So basically, I got a C license in 2023 from US Soccer, and we had to do a SWOT analysis like you do in a master's business administrative education setting.
A
So
C license. What does that give you the
C license just
authority to?
allows, yeah, it basically they scaffold the licensing so that you're learning deeper parts of the sport as the children and the players get older. So a C license is more of a certification for 13 to 18 years old. It doesn't mean that I couldn't teach 13-year-olds before. It just means that I have a pretty rigorous education about best practices and evidence-based approaches.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
So how did that prepare you for the music business?
Because like I said, it was a SWOT analysis. So I had to look and be very honest with myself about, you know, my strengths, my weaknesses,
Hmm.
you know, and all the other things that go with how to make decisions.
Hmm.
So it gave me a framework to make decisions about looking at myself honestly through this process and where I need help and where I can do things myself.
Hmm. Forgive
And I
me.
was able to
I
identify
thought
that
you
one.
said a SWOT analysis. I'm like,
Yeah.
am I being surrounded?
No,
But
no, 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 no. It's like yeah, it's strengths, weaknesses, something T. I can't even remember all the things, but it's a way to organize yourself so that you're looking at yourself. You're doing self-reflection and you're doing deep self-reflection and answering very pointed questions about yourself. And then you write that down. And then you look at your weaknesses. All right. And then you look at your O's and your T's and you develop a plan about how to go forward as a coach. But it also helped me develop a plan as to how to go forward in this industry simultaneously that it was completely applicable to that,
well,
which I'm
Amiko, well, that sounds like something that I think everybody who's honest wants to be honest about what they want to do. They should have that facing them at some point before they proceed out and do anything that requires any kind of capital, be it emotional or financial, for sure. Making a business plan, an emotional business plan. That's
correct.
prudent, I would think. Well, Amiko, we have a nice way of closing here on the Craig Veltri interview. It's called the No Kidding Questionnaire. A couple of rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to your mind whenever you're ready, and away we go. Childhood celebrity crush.
Donny Osmond.
Hmm. Uh, did you? What was it about Donnie? Was he just that cute?
He was cute, but he was nice. And he was good to his sister, Marie.
Especially well, on if you ever watch that show, every other bit was Marie dunking on the poor man. It was
Yeah,
so
I know
so.
it was silly, but I loved it. No, but Donnie was to me, he was just an incredibly talented person. You know, and I related to him. I related to Marie too, but I related to him just being silly and he was somebody that like he was obtainable. You know, he was he wasn't so
Attainable.
gorgeous. He wasn't so gorgeous that he was completely out of my league. I think it's somehow I felt like, oh, that could happen. Of course it couldn't, but you know what I mean? In my mind, I was like, maybe it could happen, like who knows, right? So, that's what happens with crushes. You invest in them for a little while. And I don't even remember when it went away, but I remember thinking a lot about how I would dance with him if I was on the show.
Well, I mean, the Osmonds also come from a large family. Or do you come from? Is that another thing you related to? Do you have a lot of brothers and sisters?
Of course, I was the oldest of four.
You are the oldest of
So,
four.
yeah, so before I was 10, there were two of us. So, yeah, so we had another whole family that has a 8-year gap between. So I have a brother who's 2.5 years younger than me. I have a sister, I'm sorry, another brother who's 8 years younger than me, and then a sister who's 11 years younger than me.
Hmm. My mom is the eldest of four, and there are a couple. I'm from a big Catholic family from Pittsburgh, so there are a lot of branches of the family that have four, five, sometimes up to eight kids in the household. So I totally know what that's like, at least outside looking in. I'm one of two. What
Yeah.
was we talked a lot about your college education, but what was your favorite subject in school?
Oh, for sure, literature.
For sure, literature. Do you have a book that you've read more than 5 times?
Several. As an
What's
English
your
lit.
favorite?
So, A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf.
Not really from. I'm ashamed. I'm an English minor. I'm not really familiar with Virginia
Well,
Woolf. What's it about that story that keeps you coming back?
yeah, so Virginia Woolf was a professor. She was one of the first in 1928 in New York. She basically was giving a lecture, and she coined a phrase that was very powerful and very innovative at the time, and very, very, consistent with first wave feminism, let's say, right? Women got to vote,
Yeah,
very close around that time, 10 years earlier, whatever.
sure. Yeah.
1928, she gave a lecture on how a woman will never reach her full potential without a room of one's own and some money. There you go.
And that is,
That is
I
my
I,
story.
I can, and that's describes most of the women in my life now, actually. So that's quite profound. What occupation other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh gosh, I would love to be Bono. I think
Just
the
Bono.
female version. And I've got big goals, so don't knock me for that. I think, I respond well to stretch goals. Not everybody does. That's about a 10% thing. So I respond to them well. And that means if I get to 30% of, or 20%, it's all good. But I do want to be an ambassador for soccer and for music and how powerful that combination is.
I will say this. I was listening. A lot of people in retrospect have been kind of giving Bono a bad rap about it. I think South Park basically knocked him because, even though he does all this stuff, he still seems like an egomaniac.
Yeah.
I went back and listened to some of their late era stuff, All That You Can't Leave Behind, How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. Some of those songs still slap. I mean, I really do think they deserved every bit of their fame back then. So,
Yeah, they were
call me
one of
Team
my
Bono.
favorites of all time. That and The Clash were just big, big influences for me. Yeah.
What job, I don't care how many bags of money are handed to you, would you never want to attempt?
Oh my gosh. Uh, it's a great question. You're stumping me. Because I've done quite a few things actually, but I think I would never ever want to be involved in any kind of trash collection.
Hmm. Okay. So would that include so if you're working in a store or a restaurant, you're not the one bussing the tables or anything like that, and you're not taking the
Well,
trash out.
I would, but that would only be because, whatever it's expected. But if, as I was just to choose in a world, a perfect world, I would never do any of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
What is your go? You've been around the world, but what is your go-to food on a road trip?
My go-to food on a road trip, oh my gosh, Italian. I love Italian food.
Okay.
So I love a thin crust, really good, like fancy pizza. you know,
Okay,
that,
a restaurant in Dallas, Texas comes
oh
up to you and said, "We want to make the Amika pizza. What is on it?"
oh my gosh, it's easy. It's fresh buffalo mozzarella, fresh basil, fresh ripened tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, and probably some mushrooms and some onion and a little bit of like a goat cheese or something like that.
Mm, yeah.
And a little bit of garlic salt or something on top. Boom, perfect.
Well, I know.
Amiko's version of Neapolitan pizza or
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
I am
Very
going to replay this
basic.
and write that down, and that will be my dinner tonight. Thank you. Speaking of dinner, if
Wood
you
fired
could,
oven, get a wood fired oven.
I know a place. Don't worry. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh gosh. Whew. Who would it be? That's a great question. Great question.
I
Um,
hope those are the only ones I ask.
yeah. So I didn't prepare an answer for this ahead of time. I really regret not doing it, but I would say, who would I want to meet and have dinner with right today?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the president of Japan, and I don't even remember his name.
Oh, I'll do a quick search on that. Why would you want to meet with the president of Japan?
Because I made a point of studying East Asian history in college as a history minor. And I have an incredible, but not expertise, not an expert level of knowledge of East Asian history, but I have an incredible affinity for that world. And their history is so much longer than ours. And I would want to
Mhm.
meet someone who could explain to me how to connect the current Japanese culture with the culture that I was born into.
Hmm. Well,
I want to do it on a leadership level because um, I believe that the Japanese-American relationship is incredibly important. It's strategic for military. I mean, I'm a patriot. I'm pro-military. I want my performances to be on a USO stage. Let's just put it out there.
me too.
Um, but that's incredible. That's so cool, Craig.
Mhm.
But that's my dream. And in fact, I wore a military surplus jacket done by a designer with pink thread on all the things and made into a fashion piece right now as we speak. That's how much I feel an affinity for that dream and that goal of mine. And I would want to see how the Japanese and American relationship can be repaired because I learned so much about what happened in World War II, and both sides and both ways of culturally coming to the same information is interpreted completely different. And so I would want to be in front of someone like the president because I would have a conversation just about that and how we've come together over all these years and worked together as allies after an incredibly difficult situation with the war, World War II.
Hmm. Well, from the
As
look,
an example of how things can come together indeed after, big major conflicts. And so that's why I'd want to meet with the president of Japan.
just so that no one ats me for this line of conversation, the current prime minister of Japan right now is His Excellency Shigeru Ishibita at the moment. I believe though he
That's
gets
prime
appointed by an
minister.
emperor, if I'm not mistaken. But unfortunately, international studies in any part of this country are severely wanting. But I'm here to entertain and inform as well. So speaking of things that are slightly or badly annoying, Miko, what is your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve, oh, I would say clicking noises.
Clicking noises. I've had a few teachers that have hated the pens tapping or the pens clicking nervously. Is it just nervous energy making you nervous? What is it about that drives you crazy?
I think that's probably correct. I just find it extremely annoying and I have to leave a space where too much of that is going on. I can manage it a little bit, but I think it has to do with I remember when I was a kid in school in Minnesota and the boys before the teacher would come into the class, sometimes the teacher would have to leave while we were coming in and come back, and the boys would be scratching a chalkboard or clicking stuff. So it just came from being little and around that crazy energy and just always thinking it was so annoying. And then just, periodically having to face that here and there in a work environment or, collaborative environment or friendship environment, and just be like, can you stop that, please?
So, can I safely say that you do not enjoy tap dancing?
Oh, I do. Because it's musical. It's something that has a whole composition behind it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Usually
no,
that's
no,
that
tap
is the rhythm
dancing
driving it.
is something I do actually love.
Last question, the question there, though you do get a bonus one, so hold tight. What is the best advice that anyone has ever given you?
Oh, I would say it's been largely in this phase of my life where I'm doing, the soccer and the music and not listening to anyone who is unsupportive. That's white noise,
Mm,
and not considering that opinion as something that you want to take inside you. I think it's fair to be able to put up that boundary and say, okay, I respect your advice, but you don't internalize it
mm.
ever.
Bonus question, and I give bonus questions out to anybody who is a teacher, a coach, or a mentor of some type. Maybe not the best advice that you've ever given your students or your players, but what is the most common advice you found giving these people?
Yeah, I have a very simple thing that I say, and it's actually probably a little bit commonplace, but I think it's a very powerful thing. And it's a question. Do you want the pain of success or the pain of failure?
Hmm.
Up to you.
Team on three. Well, Amiko, this
Yeah,
right
I came
here.
from a military family. You can tell. You can tell.
Yeah, I feel it in my child rearing and a couple of mentors that I latched onto as a kid, for better or for worse. That was definitely part of my wiring. Well, Amiko, we have a great way. This is actually the favorite part of the show for my guests. At least it should be. It's time for shameless self promotion.
All
Reckless the
right, I
single
love
and
it.
Reckless the single and remixes are all available. Where can we find them? Where can we find you? Fire away.
They are streaming everywhere: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Amazon Music, you name it, it's there. TikTok. You can play, social reels and use my songs on TikTok and Instagram. So I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about my website. I'm at www.officialamiko.com, spelled Amiko. And I have merch ready to go. I would love people to support an independent artist through purchasing my merch. I am doing very, very well on my views on my website, and I would love and invite everyone to buy Hat Trick merchandise. That will be my next release. And I'm so excited about everything that's coming up. I am staying alive and well on a chart in France called DJ Buzz Chart, and I'm still on there a whole month after the promotion was supposed to end. I've managed to keep positions in the top 10 on 2 charts for DJ Buzz in France. And I just found out through a colleague of mine through soccer that somebody they know very well was at the Olympic Village in France and heard my songs playing at the Olympic Village. So this is a big deal.
C'est magnifique.
I have a new radio promotion that started last Friday, and so I will be in various different stations around the United States. The Club Jumpers Radio, they have 6 stations, and I'm playing on 98.5 Splash AM in New Jersey, or FM in New Jersey. And so just, stream my songs, listen for them on the radio, support me as an artist by buying my merchandise. And I am humbled by anybody that's willing to support me. I so appreciate that.
Well, Amiko, the Reckless remix will be featured on Scarfire Radio as well. So, congratulations on everything that you've done so far, and thank you so much for joining me today here on the Craig Veltri interview.
Well, thank you, Craig. It was a pleasure.
The Craig Veltri interview is a production of Scarfire Radio, written and edited by Craig Veltri. Your announcer is Megan Pennington. The opening theme, "Shut Up, I Love You," written by Trenton Chandler and Craig Veltri, performed by Craig Veltri, produced by Jack Gavin. Big doings here at Craig Veltri Productions LLC. The full-length concept record Letters to the Defendant is available now on all streaming services and coming soon on vinyl. As we announced last week, I will be pressing 100 copies of Letters to the Defendant on vinyl through Hellbender Vinyl in Lawrenceville. To pre-order Letters to the Defendant, send $35 plus shipping to my Venmo at Craig-Veltri. Also, I will be shooting a music video for the single Biloxi from November the 11th to November the 12th. Many thanks to Jake Taylor of Jake of All Trades Productions and actress/model Allegra Brie Moreno for appearing indeed like a vision in this production. Time now to update the event calendar because you must know where I am at all times. Friday, October the 25th, I will be at Munhall Main Street Tavern from 9 to midnight. Saturday, October the 26th, I will be at Knox's Tavern and Grill in Blawnox, get it, from 8 to 10 p.m. And then on Thursday, October 23rd, a day that has no cultural significance here in America, I will be at the Porch Sienna in Upper St. Clair from 6 to 9 p.m. I will probably be in costume. I can't wait for you guys to see my costume. I'd love to see you guys there in costume at the Porch Sienna on Halloween from 6 to 9 p.m. For full dates, go to www.craigveltri.com. For booking info, including full band and this podcast, email me at craigveltriofficial@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook by searching The Craig Veltri Interview, YouTube at Craig Veltri Music, TikTok at Craig Veltri, and you can find me on Instagram, or as my old roommate and last week's guest, the Tommy Thomas, used to call it, Instagirl, at Craig.Veltri. With special thanks to Danny Felt, I'm Craig Veltri, and this has been The Craig Veltri Interview. With that, I'll pass. To play us out is Amiko with Reckless, the Sean Finn remix, here on Scarfire Radio.